Have you ever seen videos of people riding dirt bikes in the snow and thought, how in the heck do they have so much traction? Maybe you know the answer to that and just want to figure out how to do it to your own dirt bike so you can get out there and shred in the snow too. Today, I'm going to talk about studded dirt bike tires, explain a couple different methods to stud your tires, and share what is, in my opinion, the best method to get the most traction and durability without leaving your bank account empty this winter. And in the end, I'm going to talk about how these methods actually performed in our real-world test. So stay tuned. Before we get into all that, I'm trying to reach 5,000 subs. It's free and it really helps me out, so hit that button below and join the Supermoto crew today. Studded tires were always something I dreamed of having for my dirt bike. The first time I ever saw a pair, my mind was blown. I had never really considered riding in the winter before, but when I walked into my dad's friend's garage and I saw that KTM sitting there all shiny, ready to go, with those gruesome looking spiked tires, the seed was planted in my mind. I was pretty young then, and the funny thing is, I never actually got around to getting a set of studded tires for myself. Sure, I'd take my dirt bike out in the winter every once in a while and slip and slide, but for some reason, I never studded my tires. Until now. After an entire season of riding my CRF250F Trail Bike in the woods this year, and having an absolute blast doing it, I decided that this was the winter I was finally going to stud my tires. The CRF was perfect for it too. I ran the stock tires all season, never changed them, so they were pretty beat up. I was also considering trying out Mousses as well, so a tire change was well overdue. Plus, the CRF with its air-cooled, fuel-injected engine, electric start, and easy rideability made it the perfect choice for a fun little winter bike that I'd hopefully ride as much as possible. Because of that, I immediately got to work researching the available methods for studded tires. And here's what I found. You have the cheap and fast method, the expensive and easy method, and lastly, the best bang for your buck method. And I'm going to talk about each one of those now. So first off, you have the cheap and fast method. And I kind of discovered this method when my buddy actually tried it out after I did the best bang for your buck method, which I'll talk about later in the video. Basically what he did was he went to the hardware store and he bought a bunch of sheet metal screws. He bought them short enough so that they wouldn't go the whole way through the knobs of your tires. And basically he just took the screws and they had the hex head on them, so they have a little bit of something to grip. And he actually just screwed them into his tires from the outside in. And these sheet metal screws ended up costing him only around $15. And because he was able to drill them from the outside in, he didn't even have to take his tires and wheels off the bike. So that makes it really fast and easy. Now, whenever I first heard he was doing this and he brought his bike over, I assumed there would be some cons. I figured, because they're not sticking out as much as normal studs, they're probably going to have less traction. Because they're only secured from one way, that being the outside in, they're probably going to pull out quicker and you'll end up losing your studs. And additionally, another con, he was running Mousses in his tires, so he didn't have to worry about this, but if you are running tubes, you really want to make sure you don't get screws that are too long because you risk screwing them the whole way through and then leaving a little spike on the inside, which is immediately going to puncture your tube. So I assumed these were cons, but I wasn't really able to tell until we actually tested it out, which I'll talk about later in the video. The next method, and this was kind of the first one that I actually considered, was the expensive and easy method. So, like I said, I had never done this before. It was my first time running studded tires, and so I just kind of wanted to get into it the easiest way possible. Unfortunately, that comes at a cost. You can actually buy studded tires pre-made, pre-studded, but they're a little bit hard to find, and you usually have to order them online or find someone around you locally that has the equipment to stud them properly. And so it's going to vary depending on where you're at, but an online method I found was Mitas, M-I-T-A-S, or they used to be called Trelleborg. They make a pre-studded tire. Now, I wasn't able to find it on their direct website, but I did find some on eBay and some other websites as well, and they're really expensive. They're somewhere in the neighborhood of $600, probably more, for a pair of them. But the thing with actual studded tires, like properly studded winter tires, is they are supposed to last way longer. It's basically not a screw in, it's like a rivet style. And I'm not exactly sure how it works, but they're riveted in a way that they will not pull out. I believe they're actually like fused into the tire in some way. Correct me in the comments if I'm wrong. Like I said, I didn't really look into this that much because they're just so dang expensive. And my first time trying them out, I didn't even know how much I'd be riding in the winter. So I really didn't want to go for a method that was that expensive right off the bat. Now, from talking to my friends and stuff that have tried these out, I have heard that these have the most traction by far out of all of these methods. But the next method I'm going to talk about, and this was my personal choice and what I ended up doing, I believe it gives you a really, really good amount of traction that's comparable to the actual studded tire, pre-studded tire method, but it costs you a fraction of the price. So let's get into the best bang for your buck method, and this is the method that I used on my CRF250F. It was really affordable. I ended up spending only $50 on all the supplies for both my front and rear tire. Now, I got this method off of Zach Attack 1's video, which I'll link in the description, and it gives you a really good step-by-step tutorial on how to do this. But I'll give you the basic rundown right now. So pretty much what it is it's taking masonry screws, like Tapcons. Basically what you do is you pre-drill holes once you pick a pattern. You screw the Tapcons in from the inside to the outside of the tire. And then what you do is you take a nut and you cross-thread it backwards from the outside onto the screw. The threads are not meant to line up, so you need an impact driver and you're gonna need a ratchet to hold the other end on the inside. Now, I ended up getting Phillips on the inside and they were flat. You wanna keep them as flat as possible, the heads of the screws, because you don't want it to poke into either your tube or into your mousses, because that'll tear them up. So I ended up getting Phillips headed screws and they were pretty flat, but if you can find maybe like a Torx screw head or something that's a little more secure than Phillips, because Phillips tends to cam out, that would be a lot better. Because what you're gonna do is you're gonna hold a ratchet on the inside on that Phillips head, or hopefully you have a Torx head because it'll be a lot easier. And then on the outside, you use the impact driver and you just drive that nut on, cross thread that thing into the pointy end of the screw. And this really locks those studs in. Now, I will say it's extremely time consuming, and this took us like a whole evening to do just 2 tires, but it's like a fraction of the cost of buying them. Plus you get to use your old tires, which is what I did. I used my stock tires that I was going to throw out anyway, and it basically gives them a new lease on life. Another thing is, I have to test this more, but from what I've seen so far, these things will not pull out. It's not the same method as the way that pre-studded tires are. Like I said, those are riveted in, but because these are secured basically by drilling them on the inside and with the nut on the outside, it really locks them in tight to the tire. So they're very much less likely to pull out than the $15 sheet metal screw method. And the thing with these is it really offers up a lot of grip. I mean, just take a look at these things. Look how spiky these are. They're sticking out. They look gnarly. They look like kind of scary, if I'm being honest with you. So we're going to get into the performance test and how these actually worked. But first I want to talk a little bit about the bibs, the Mousse bibs that I installed into my tires as well. I opted for the Mousse bibs because I was interested with them anyway, and I didn't want to risk puncturing a tube when I put my studded tires on, because this does add the risk of puncturing. Now you could obviously put a layer of thin foam or maybe tape the heads of the screws to make your tire as smooth as possible, but when putting something on the inside of your tire, you're obviously running a higher risk of popping a tube. So I ended up getting these Nitro Mousse bibs. Now, if you do this, the bibs are kind of expensive, so that's going to add a lot more cost to your whole process here. So you don't have to do it. Like I said, you could put a foam liner on the inside and that would be a lot cheaper, but I was getting the bibs anyway, so I ended up doing them. Now, the install was pretty easy because my buddy's done them tire changes with bibs before, so he kind of helped me out and showed me exactly how to do it. But basically what you do, they give you a tube of this lubricant, you rub it on the inside of the tire all around, and then you slide the bib, the foam insert into the tire. And then we use this thing called a Rabaconda. It's basically a tire changing stand that does a really good job. It has this like lever on the top that really pushes the bead down and forces it down, and it makes it a lot easier to get these really big and bulky mousses onto your rim. Now, when you're running a tire with a Mousse in it, you don't have the valve stem because you're not running air. So you have an extra hole in your rim. And what some people do is they run an extra rim lock. I was gonna do that. I bought the rim locks, but then my buddy was saying that you probably don't need it, to be honest. This bike doesn't have a ton of torque. So I actually opted just to leave the second rim lock out of it, and I just taped over the hole so I wouldn't get dirt and grime and stuff in there. Then it would wear down my Mousse. So after we did all that, I mounted the tires back up, and actually on Christmas Eve, me and my buddy went out and we tested these two methods. Now he's run the actual expensive studded tires before, but like I said, this time he just took about $15 and drilled a bunch of sheet metal screws into his tires. And I had the best bang for your buck method with the tap cons and the nuts. So we went out for a ride and the ground was pretty frozen. I would say it's about 70% frozen, and you can see here in the video. And boy, did that blow my mind. First off, it was the first time I was ever riding a dirt bike with studded tires, and having my other experiences only be slipping and sliding all over the place, like zero traction on the snow and when the ground is frozen, this was a complete game changer. It blew me away so much. And it was just so cool to be able to just shred and lean that thing over and continue getting grip all the way around. I mean, I was riding off-camber sections that I was really struggling on in the summer when the dirt was like perfect. And I was able to do them super easy with these studded tires because I had like 100% grip, maybe even more than 100% grip, I would describe it as, on the places that normally I would be slipping and sliding with good tires in regular dirt, which is crazy. It was absolutely crazy. And yeah, it just blew me away. I really think this best bang for your buck method with the tap cons is a really good and affordable way to try it out if you're kind of skeptical and unsure. Now, I did switch bikes with my buddy, and I got on his bike with the sheet metal screws. And I will say, I am surprised with that method as well. The thing is, it wasn't giving up me as much grip as the tap cons that I used. However, it was enough grip to where it kind of felt like if you're riding around on a somewhat slippery day with a good set of regular tires. You still get a ton of traction, you're still able to do everything perfectly fine, but it does feel like you're slipping and sliding around as opposed to the tires just digging in and like clawing into the frozen ground like they do with the tap cons or the actual regular studs. And so I think it really depends. Like if you're really skeptical, you're unsure, you don't want to take your wheel off, you want something that's extremely fast, easy, and super cheap, try out the sheet metal screws. Now make sure you get the sheet metal screws with the big hex on them, so that way they do actually have something for the ground to dig into the ground. Otherwise, if you get something that's flat, you're gonna screw them in, there's gonna be kind of no point to that. So when we were done riding, I looked at my buddy's bike and it seemed like they didn't actually pull out, but that was only one ride. So like I said, just based on the nature of how they were screwed in, I'm sure that eventually they're gonna start pulling out, and they're probably gonna do so much quicker than the method that I opted for, but they were only $15 and you didn't even have to take the tire off. So if you're kind of skeptical, I would definitely recommend the sheet metal screw option. If you want to go for something that's going to last you all season for sure and is going to give you that 100% grip, but you don't want to go out and spend $600 for a brand new pair of studded tires, I would highly recommend the TapCon Zac Attack 1 method. And like I said, I'll have that video linked in the description so you can follow a step-by-step tutorial. And I just want to say, it's so cool. I can't believe I'm finally riding studded tires. I'm super excited for it to really snow and the ground to get super frozen so I can try it out some more. I'm very, very excited to be riding this winter. And you know, all in all, I highly recommend you give one of these methods a try. Having studded dirt bike tires unlocks a whole new set of riding opportunities, and there's a ton of fun to be had out of your dirt bike in the winter. If you'd like to help me continue making videos like this one, consider joining Soup Crew. You'll get a free Soup Moto sticker when you join, gain access to bonus videos, and get to see my regular videos before they go public. Become a part of Soup Crew by hitting the join button below if you're on desktop, or through the link in the description. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. That's all for now. Soup out.